Good morning, you righteous light bringers. Today I want to talk about taking up space. So there's a lot on my mind right now. I've got things floating around about body sovereignty and this Instagram profile that I just learned about this week called the Nap Ministry, and how that ties into my comment from last week about wiggling being a form of ministry. And I say that word with trepidation, knowing that it's a fairly charged word for many who have been the recipient of religious trauma. And I in no way wish to intersect with anything that has been traumatic for anybody. So I understand if this is one you don't want to watch. Let's just take care of you. And that ties back into taking up the space that you need, claiming the space that you need in order to be well and fulfilled and thriving and happy and of service to people. General Assembly is next week. Ministry Days is next week. These are functions that I'm attending, virtual functions that I'm attending. And then that same week, classes open up for registration for grad school, which is like... So taking up space and body sovereignty. This kind of ties back to a question that I posed on my personal Facebook account about disability and whether or not you could, hypothetically, it's not a hypothetical question. I'm asking it hypothetically in order to give people space to answer it, but it's really about me and people like me. So it is not an abstraction. The idea of whether or not you could or would feel justified and validated and reconciled in claiming that you have a disability if, for example, your impairment is either fairly mild or intermittent or easily controlled with meds. Do you still consider yourself to be disabled? And by that I mean can you claim that jargon for yourself, and can you consider yourself part of that community? The question opened up really beautiful responses from a lot of people, and I haven't asked ahead of time if I can quote them, so I'm not going to be naming any names. The responses ranged anywhere from people's personal experience with it and the adaptations that they had to work around a broken system, and for example, making sure your peer support was in place, that a lot of the support that you would get in the quote-unquote accommodations that you might need could be provided by your peers in your community. Another came from a person who said they've never met a person who was better off by wondering if maybe they should be considered disabled and seek accommodations and didn't. That denying of their situation never made them happier. However, if they did adopt that, jargon is kind of a weird way of putting it, but that's all I've got in my brain right now. And kind of joining that community made their lives way better. To seek those accommodations, to accept the fact that those accommodations were needed and to seek them out and secure them, that made their lives better. The space that I am trying to claim for myself and that I'm working on is with a recent diagnosis and a new med that I've started has made a positive impact on my life and my daily functioning, and I'm happy about that. And I still have a lot of bleeping trepidation about full-time grad school. It's been a long time since I was a full-time student, and to enter into that while I am also, like many of us, a single parent in a pandemic and dealing with stuff, and I freely admit that I have had it fairly easy compared to many because of my my privilege and the opportunities that I have taken and the ways that I have leaned on that and the community that I've built. And I feel very, very grateful for all of that. Nevertheless, as I approach grad school, I realize that there are some ways that I might want to take up space that will make me a better student and make me a better parent while I'm still trying to be a student, and generally make me more able to connect to my education in a way that will be useful and hopefully fruitful for others as I enter this life of service in the ministry. And let's be real for a second, they're probably mostly anxiety-induced concerns. I'll probably be fine. Like, I'll be okay. It'll be challenging and I'll get through it, and I'll lean on people and I'll cry a lot and blah, 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 whatever. I'll get through it. Like, that's ultimately the through line here. And I'm looking at ways that I can take up space, like people that I don't want to be around. Perfectly lovely people who just are, for whatever reason, I need to have my psychic barriers up around them, and that takes a lot of work, and I don't have the spoons to devote to, listening to certain people talk. One of those accommodations that I have been thinking about is to just let people know that it might take me a little extra time to get through a process, and that not only is that okay for me to ask for, that it's not me being lazy, it's not me trying to get extra time to do a project because I want to get that extra point or two for my grade. Like, this is literally about my brain being able to get through a day, and that there will be days when that is just like, nope. A lot of this is me trying to work this out in my own spirit, of what's okay for me to ask for, and my own background makes the idea of taking up space really uncomfortable sometimes. So, and I know that many people will identify with that. One of the things that came up out of the conversation on this Facebook post was how hard people have to fight for their diagnoses. That even the educated medical community is not educated enough on certain things, and how, also doctors are humans and they'll miss diagnoses and things like that, but specifically how hard people have to work to be recognized and acknowledged for the things that are real for them. And to even get testing, sometimes you have to ask and ask and ask to be tested, to be evaluated, to be assessed, to have your symptoms as you report them taken as the gospel truth, and just finding a way to deal with them. So in that sense, the taking up space means, unfortunately means that people who are sick have to be their own strongest allies, and sick in whatever, physically sick or dealing with mental health concerns, or not sick, but just that the body functionality is not Unfortunately, that idea of taking up space means that people who are the least resourced to do it need to be their own biggest ally and advocate in terms of fighting for a diagnosis or fighting to have their symptomology considered as real and just validated and accepted as reported. And so many people with a variety of conditions report this. So I'm like, this is really bleeped up. Like, the message that I'm trying to get across today is you're not alone, and it's worth fighting for. You're worth fighting for. And I don't know, I wish I could say that there was a better way to do it, like, than to have to just make the phone call again and again and again. I'm facing that too right now. I don't love it. I'm not excited about it. But I want you to take up space. Like, I want you to know that that you're worth it and it matters. And at every moment that you do take up that space and fight for that diagnosis or that accommodation, or even just work up the courage to ask for something that may be freely given if you just let it be known that you need it, like, all of that is a huge act of rebellion and resistance and courage, and so worth it.
It's raining outside, so you get an inside wiggle today after all that thought for the day. And all that I have to say is welcome to the yellow and purple room. Okay. I think I'm bored of this already. So, like, comment, subscribe, or not, whatever. I don't know what y'all are gonna think about this. It's a spur of the minute adaptation to just having wet hair and not wanting to have it drip down my neck. And also, I have questions about it.